from the judiciary, we talk about the polity in general, from the executive at the different arms of the government. And tonight we're being joined by representatives of the two major political parties in the country. And they will be telling us just how and what they have contributed to governance in the country at the various levels and how this has perhaps bettered the lives of the citizens. After all, political parties are basically formed to ensure that resources are used judiciously, to ensure that people's lives are made better. So the question is, how well have the parties fared in governance? Let's join our guests. Mr. Niyi Akishiju joins us from our Abuja studio. He's the chairman Buhari Media Organization. Good evening and thank you for joining us on the program tonight.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Good evening, Nigerians.
Good evening to you too. And right here in our Lagos studio, we have Mr. Akin Oshuntokun. He's a PDP spokesperson in 2019 presidential election.
Yeah, you are right. So welcome. Let me just make a very brief qualification. I'm not representing PDP to speak on what PDP has achieved. I represent a political tendency.
And that's the presidential election, the 2019 presidential election.
I can speak on the spread. All the things that concern Nigeria. I'm not here to talk on a partisan basis. I have no mandate of PDP to come talk on their behalf. But of course, I can assess the way things are going as a consensus Nigeria.
So your affiliations, are they with the PDP or with Nigerians?
I was spokesperson of PDP, but it is wrong to say I'm not here to talk about what PDP governments have contributed.
But it's safe to say that you were the spokesperson for the presidential election.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And compliments of the season.
Same to you.
So let's begin with this talk around 37 billion naira. I mean, it's important to have your perspective before we go to Abuja. What do you think about it?
Well, you know, it's a syndrome that Nigeria is going through. There is a systemic failure, you know. These are just reflections of the failure, the endemic cyclical failure that seems to be deepening on a daily basis. This is just a manifestation of it. Look, this kind of, the mentality behind the proposal is more important than the actual money they are requesting by itself. In a country going through the kind of economic phase, the crisis that Nigeria is going through, that a group of legislators can gather themselves together. Now, a country that wants to borrow $30 billion, that is spending 50%, over 50% to service debt, probably paying another 30% on recurrent expenditure. Now you have this legislature to renovate the National Assembly. Don't forget that these same people are buying themselves, if they have not done it, new four-wheel drive cars, right? So, you see, I can't, and of course, you want to talk about the emoluments. Monetization of benefits in Nigeria by law has been in existence for almost 10 years now. Yet, you find this group of people making the state responsible for practically all aspects of their lifestyle. You can get an average, what do they earn on a monthly basis? The last time we had that, probably the highest paid. Right? Now, there is an entitlement mentality, and actually, you don't even want to know. The point they should get is this. The beggar on the street, that beggar in Nigeria has exactly the same right to the level of comfort and protection from the government that as they. The Senate, the president of the Senate is not superior to that beggar in the street. If you think of Nigeria spending this kind of amount on you, in terms of the emoluments, they are still going to follow the contracts they approved to the ministries to ask for it. Yeah. So
I didn't get that part. You said they'll follow it to the ministries.
Yes, of course. That's why they pad the budget, right? In collusion with these people, and then go ahead and that's what it means.
Those are major allegations. Can you substantiate them?
It's not major allegations. It's actually in this. It has been made an issue now about 264 billion that is raging, and in any look, talking about the malfeasance of the National Assembly, it's not. it is too, I mean, it's too conspicuous.
Right. I'd like you to hold your thoughts. Let's just bring in Mr. Kishiju in our Abuja studio. Now, you've listened to Mr. Oshitoku talk about this, and before this, I remember the Senate president saying this issue was discussed with the president, and he, in quote, gave go ahead for this money to be appropriated, and he sort of approved this renovation. So from this perspective and what Nigerians are saying about this, add to what Serap is also saying at the court, what do you have to say about this issue?
Well, I want to trust the judgment of the president. Yes, I heard that the Senate president and, of course, management, leadership of the National Assembly met with the president. I cannot confirm that. But if indeed the president approved it, of course, because it's also an item in the budget of the FCDA that is responsible for the National Assembly complex, I want to trust that judgment. I want to believe that the National Assembly is in dire need of that renovation. I think the first time the renovation matter came up was sometimes in 2012 or 2011, and a budget was the budget for the renovation was placed at 47 billion naira, as it were. And well, if they are talking of 37 billion now, it shows it's a reduction first and foremost. But the important thing is, I may not, of course, be able to make submissions, on this, because I'm not a quantity surveyor, and that's why I'm saying I want to trust the judgment of the president. And of course, yes, you have SERAP and other civil society organizations taking the matter to court, which is good. The fact of the matter is these are the kind of interfaces, interactions, that build institutions for us, that build precedents for us. So I support that. But I also believe that the leadership of the National Assembly is also in the know and believe they need this. I also heard the Director of Information of the National Assembly came out to defend this line by line. But as a person, there's a limit to my understanding of the costing, as it were.
Right. Now, when you hear
and
from
let me
Sarah...
quickly add this. I appreciate and understand why my good brother there, Mr. Oshitoku, is turning his back on PDP. You do not support a bad brand, publicly. So I understand his position. And I appreciate his position more than anything else.
Well, I think it's only fair to allow you to respond to that. Are you turning your back to what he calls a bad brand?
You see, it's a typical piece versus it tends to trivialize discussion. What does that mean?
No, we'll get back to that discussion. I just want to clear the air on what he said.
I've cleared it before, right from the start of the program. What do you want to say? But somebody talking about a weighty issue like this, coming to trivialize all the discussion, turning my back, is that what is important? That's more important than the question you're asking.
But are you turning your back on the PDP?
Did I say that?
So I think you should respond to him.
I don't need to respond to him. I didn't come here to discuss whether I'm turning my back. You don't downgrade what we are doing here. I didn't come here to discuss.
I think it's only fair to actually
clear
the air on that.
It's not fair for him to say so.
But
that is what you should have told him to order.
Right. So, Mr.
So.
Akishiju, let's just continue the conversation. I was going to bring this in now. You see SERAP and the other concerned organizations saying that now this means less money for educating millions of out-of-school children in Nigeria. It also means less money to provide access to clean water and healthcare to Nigerians. Going on to say, I mean, this includes elderly or repairing the country's roads and others, talking about infrastructure. So in the sight of this, revelation from SERAP, do you still think that spending is justified?
Well, the one, I do not represent the National Assembly, I am not also avail of the basic reasons for this. But the important thing is, as an institution of state, it also has its own requirements and its own needs. If in the wisdom of the leadership of the National Assembly, they think they need this, I think it is not out of place, but what is also important is that there's the polity is a member of many parts, you know. So if you're talking of education, if you're talking of water, if you're talking of old age care and all that, there's also a need to take care of members of your National Assembly. There's also a need to take care of your National Assembly complex. That is the seat of the Nigerian sovereign, you know. So to my mind, I don't think there's anything absolutely wrong here. But as I said, it's interactions like this, what Serap had done, that also help us establish precedents, that also help us create pedigrees, you know, in terms of how our decisions are made. So it's the executive, the legislative arm of government will take a position, the executive arm of government will take a position. CSOs, that's what they are for. They go to court and engage.
Right.
And the outcome of that at the judiciary level will also determine the pace and the dimensions of our thoughts on this matter.
Okay, so let me bring in Mr. Okutepa just to wade in into this. I've listened to Mr. Oshuntoku and Mr. Kishiju on your submissions. But Mr. Okutepa, looking at the facts on ground, what Serap and other organizations are saying, what Mr. Kishiju has said, and add to that Mr. Oshuntoku's submission, how do you think we should move forward with this issue?
Well, first of all, let me say this here, that I do not see the difference between PDP and APC as a political party, speaking for myself as a Nigerian, because majority of people you see in APC today were members of PDP. And you may recall that this National Assembly was said to have been renovated for 43 billion naira some time ago. And the question is, what is in that National Assembly that requires even 37 billion or 43 billion for renovation, when in the words of the president, our hospitals are still mere consulting clinics? And all the hospitals you see in Nigeria are where you cannot go to get even the correct health care that you need. And so, speaking for myself, I think Nigerian political class need to be called to order. And I commend Serap and other Nigerians, because it seems to me that the cost of governance in Nigeria is so astronomical that indeed Nigerian politicians, with respect to them, seems to be more interested in their comfort than the comfort of Nigerian people. Otherwise, I do not see the need for renovation of National Assembly when indeed the National Hospital, for instance, in Abuja, or even state clinic, there is nothing there. When the health cares of Nigerians, our universities are mere kindergarten, secondary schools, or what have you.
Right.
So I think government need to be serious with Nigerians. And I think enough is enough for this kind of extravagant spending on what I may call political mere convenience for the comfort of people who are supposed to be our representative. I do not see the need for it. And I commend Serap. More Nigerians should go to court. We should hold our government accountable. Government is not being held accountable, and that is why anybody can do anything and get away with it. There is no consequences for even breaching our laws. And so for me, whether Mr. Akintoku or Mr. Akiwaju, both of them are representing political
Mr.
class.
Okutepa, it's Mr. Oshuntoku and Mr. Kishiju. But let me come to Mr. Oshuntoku here.
Mr. Oshuntoku and Mr. Kishiju. Thank you, I'm sorry.
It's not legal matter. So
I'm not a politician. And so I will need to I speak for Nigerian people. And I feel the pulse of Nigerian people.
Right.
I think it's
okay.
extravagant.
Let's come to Lagos.
National Assembly for 30.
Right. So, Mr. Oshuntoku, a lot has been said about this, but let's go back to, the points where you were a spokesperson, and you still are. And, if that election had been won by your candidate, it would mean that he will be president and, of course, will oversee the government. And the usual question Nigerians ask, Mr. Okutepa believes that there's no difference between the APC and the PDP, and a lot of Nigerians think so. So the question is, what would have been done differently?
Well, this question is not whether there is difference between PDP and APC. The question is that one political party has been in charge of the governance of Nigeria for the past 5 years.
But, you
see
know,
all these
at
kind of
various
loose-
levels,
Please,
let's go to the National Assembly.
Don't,
the
please.
PDP, no, Mr. Oshoko, I need to learn.
You can't dictate
The
to me what I will say.
I just need to put this in. The PDP has over 160 representatives at the National Assembly. Across the states, the PDP has 16 governors. So if you look from the National Assembly to the states, it's not just the PDP. I mean, we need to look at this holistically. So the question is, what would have been done differently?
Do you have a Nigerian government? Answer your question.
No, that's your question.
But the
actually.
government of Nigeria is the government of APC. So you yourself get your questions correct. I don't like this kind of loose talk. The one who was talking about...
Mr. Oshoko, I'd like us to be careful
I'm not talking about you.
the terms
I'm
we
not
use
talking
on
about
television.
You. I'm talking about you.
No, regardless.
Well, okay, maybe you want to include yourself. You're talking about the failure of PDP, a party that has been outside of power since when? 2015.
That's at the
You are talking
central level.
Just please. If you understand the problem of Nigeria, you will understand that the lopsidedness, of the federalism we are practicing is at the core of it. In which case, the over concentration of power at the center. That almost makes nonsense, of almost many of these, unviable states. So anybody who understands the Nigerian government, how it works, right, will not come to that kind of conclusion. The federal government of Nigeria, since 1966, is loaded in such a way that it overwhelms or dictates what goes on at the other level. You can get, it's not, so if you want to talk about the government of Nigeria, you don't talk about the government of Ekiti State. There is a government of Nigeria, there's a president, executive president of Nigeria, and the buck stops at his table.
Right.
And so far, what have they shown, how are they accounted for their governance?
No, we'll return to this in a moment, Mr. Oshoko.
Yeah.
But the question is, what would have been done different? I think that was a
What
question
would have
I
been
put
done
to you.
different?
But we'll need to go on a break.
No,
We'll come back after this break to allow you land on that. Do join us again. And also, we'll bring you, how did you see that moment? I mean, this week has been quite eventful. And we have a shot, that you say it, that is a disrupted rally. Now, this made rounds during the week. You see that a particular organization, in fact, civil society groups, were meant to protest at the nation's capital, Abuja. And you see Mr. Denyonju being attacked there. He says he has petitioned the Inspector General of Police. This was done in the presence of policemen. He has petitioned, according to him, the IG, and we wait to see the outcome of that investigation and perhaps if there will be prosecution. You can see those sites there, really disturbing sight from the nation's capital. You're welcome back to the program. We're at the final lap of the program for today, and we're still being joined by Mr. Akin Osuntokun, the spokesperson of PDP 2019 presidential election. Thank you so much for your patience on the program. And from Abuja, we have Mr. Niyi Akinshiju, who is the chairman Buhari Media Organization. And we're also being joined by Mr. Jibrin Okutepa, who is the senior advocate of Nigeria. So let's allow Mr. Osuntokun to land on your thoughts before we went on the break about what would have been done differently.
Well, a lot of things will have, of course, look, what has become apparent is that the problems of, the challenges and problems of Nigeria, they are far bigger than this president and the party in office. And if we are not already in it, we are getting into a stage of what we call crisis fatigue. As you are talking about one crisis or wrongdoing today, the following day it will be reinforced with a worse one. Look, the crisis we are in is of a dimension, right, that you refer to emergency. The first thing you need, from the history of civilization is the commitment of your citizens to mobilize the entire country behind an agenda of action. Rather than that, this president deepens division and partisanship on a daily basis.
How? Why do you say that?
You'll be complaining. Look, the president of the Christian Association of Nigeria said it. That in response to a statement from the US or whether accusing the government or the president of marginalizing or persecuting the president, he said, look at the appointment. Look, whatever you may want to say about this current president, he at least gave this government and this president the benefit of the doubt. And since the return of the government, this is a trend that somebody who has given the president, that almost so-called partisans, attacked him at that time for kowtowing the government, finding it necessary now to say how the appointment or the patronage system of this government has been continued almost with a frenzy, right? You know, it's not, the judiciary is a victim of the environment. But the moment that you lose the judiciary, that country is going to a dot. So you look at all these things, they have a history.
Right.
And we are reaching a convergence point. The lawyer who was talking should remember the assault of the president on the judiciary about a year ago, stampeding the Chief Justice out of office. So those things, the thing about this government is that when something takes place, right, and it is being defended or whatever it is, you will find that subsequent events will vindicate the criticism of that action.
Okay, let's find out. Mr. Akinshiju, you've listened to Mr. Oshintoko. He's talked about issues of divisions. He's talked about even the judiciary alleging that the president stampeded the former Chief Justice out of office. So I'd like you to respond to some of the issues he raised, especially because we're counting down to 2020, which will be a very vital year for this nation.
Well, I don't know about the president sending out a CJN, because I know there's a process. And I also know that there's no way the executive arm can stampede the institution of the judiciary because it has control, it has structure. So it's not possible for the president, or the executive arm to stampede the institution of the judiciary, especially at the highest possible level. We are talking about the office of the CJN. And I quickly also want to make a flashback to what my friend said there on the matter of skewed federalism and all that. Mr. Oshintoko was a very influential member of the Obasanjo administration. At the time, he was in charge of the News Agency of Nigeria, if I recollect very well. While in office, I never heard him, talked about this issue. And I think there's a need for us to be consistent. Once we are conscientized, once we believe a position, it is not when we are out of office, that we tend to talk about it. If you have a conviction, you talk about it. And I'm talking about this president. In the last dispensation, at least in his first term, there was this fourth-line propaganda against him in matters of the constitution of the cabinet, how you had one religion more in majority than the other. Eventually, a census of the cabinet was done, and it came out that actually you had more Christians, in the cabinet. And the same is what you have now. You really cannot have people do proper census and statistics of a small number of the cabinet, as it were. You see, the truth is that some people had become, ingenious at pushing our fault lines. And it's so unfortunate. Our elites, our political elites, our religious elites, and others feed on this. The important thing for this government, as far as the President Buhari vision is concerned, is about the Nigerian mass. And for God's sake, we are getting there. Just this week, last week, it was announced that Nigeria is one of the first 6 fastest growing economy behind just China, India, US, and two other economies. And we are one of the top 10 most improved economies in the world. These are figures out there. So if we are talking, let's talk about ourselves. Let's talk about what is on ground Nigeria, and of course the vision of this country, the vision for moving Nigerians out of 100 million Nigerians out of poverty. The government is doing this. We can see how the federal government is talking about projects.
Okay.
I can see how the federal government is talking about infrastructure.
Mr. Akinshiju, let me just put this in before we... Let me just put this in before we go. Now, is the government ready to work with opposition, like the PDP and other dissenting voices. Do you welcome this?
The PDP should first go and deliver their headquarters that they raised $6 billion for in 2008 and 21 billion for in 2014.
Mr. Akinshiju, is that a
start
yes
talking about
or no?
intervention in Nigeria. Why would this government discuss or dialogue with PDP when ordinary headquarters, its own headquarters, that is camped Nigerians for close to 27 billion naira, they could not deliver?
You know, Mr. Akinshiju, you would agree that the PDP actually represents the interest of some Nigerians also. But let's just end with Mr. Oshitoku. Do you think that the PDP would want to work with this government, at least pull ideas together and build the nation, ultimately, regardless of, you know, the issues and the controversies working around?
Well, of course, why wouldn't the PDP want to, why wouldn't they want to work? All other Nigerians should want to work with the president. You see, look, but you don't shake somebody who is not stretching, and it's not a question of even PDP. Well, the president himself said so at the beginning of his first term, that if some people voted for him for 97%, do you want him to treat the same Nigerians?
What about the statement that is for everybody, is for nobody?
But you know, that is, how much has that been proven?
Okay.
Look, let me finish, please.
We really have to go.
There is nothing
you can
the
make your
president
point
has
now.
done in the first term that he has not worse, that has not become worse in this second term.
You know, I would like to really see some statistics backing that. But, I mean, I'll give that to you, Mr. Akin Oshitoku. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on the program. He's a spokesperson in the 2019 presidential election of the People's Democratic Party. And from Abuja, Mr. Niyi Akinshiju, who is a chairman, Buhari Media Organization. Next to him, Mr. Jibrin Okutepa, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts with us on tonight's program. So that's it for tonight, but don't forget you can always watch this episode again on our YouTube page that you see, and that's youtube.com/channelsweb, or you can go to the search bar and search Channels Television. Subscribe, definitely, so you can get access to our latest content. So that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Kayode Kikelu.